Yo, what's up, family? It's your dog, the Ultra Melanite, coming to you live from Charleston, South Carolina, aka the Holy City. And today's discussion is going to be the misidentification of black people in America as African American. I'd like to start the discussion off by making a statement that most of the black people in America are not directly descended from the black people in Africa, at least not via the transatlantic slave trade or the triangular trade. The black community in America have definitely been there for thousands of years prior to any European expansion into the New World, which brings us to our first question. How did we get here? And that's a very simple question to answer. The same way people got in Africa, Australia, Asia, and Europe. The same way the trees, the plants, and the animals got here. The Creator put us here. But not only did we forsake the Creator, we forsaked ourselves through a lack of education. My people have been destroyed through a lack of knowledge. Hosea chapter 4, verse 1 in your Bible. And since my people have been destroyed through education, I think it's only fitting that we recreate ourselves through proper education, which is not given to us by our institutes. Education should be taught in 3 initial steps, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric, input, process, and output. The part of that equation that is most often overlooked is the grammar portion. Grammar is not simply reading and writing like most people think. Grammar is actually the total identification of the world around you. That's what we call your input. And since my people lack grammar, they lack the capability to properly identify themselves or the world around them. Since today's discussion is on Black America, let's start with the etymology or the grammar behind the word black. Black is a total absorption of light or color, leaving it without hue. Black absorbs light instead of reflecting light. With that being said, if I gave you a box of crayons, how much people would color themselves with a black one? How much people would color themselves with a white one? Not many, if any. I don't know any of them personally myself. So by calling a person black or white, that would be grammatically incorrect, as no one on the planet is actually these colors or non-colors. Let's take it a step further. All right. Black is an English word. All right. Black is derived from many other words in many different languages. For example, black is the equivalent to the word Negro, nigger, negre, noir. All of those words are simply the same word as black but written in another language, which brings us to our next grammar lesson. If the word nigger offends you, then so should the word black, because grammatically they are the same words spoken from 2 different language groups. I'm not offended by any of them. I'm just making a statement for those people who are offended by one word, like nigger, but not offended by the other word, like black. It's not logical at all, and the reason why it's not logical is because that person lacks the grammar behind the word. Our ancestors also realized this and did not agree with these terms of classification, as they knew that they were all the same words just being translated from different languages. For example, black to Negro, English to Spanish. All right. Also, the ancients did not use these terms to identify people, which brings us to our next question. When did we start being called niggers, blacks, and Negroes? And the answer to that question is probably around 1500 by the Portuguese after they defeated the Moorish Empire in Western Africa, which extended from Senegal all the way to Spain. And Moor simply means brown. If you go back to the Greek, it comes with more from Moris, and it simply means brown. After defeating that Moorish Empire in Western Africa and gaining access to certain knowledge and science of the stars, they eventually made it to the New World, where they continued their conquest of the indigenous people, who at the time they identified just as they identified the indigenous inhabitants of Africa, Asia, and southern India. Upon arrival, the Spanish and the Portuguese identified the people as being Ethiopian, Hebrew tribes, Negritos, Negrillos, Moors, and Indians. The original inhabitants of the Americas were documented as being copper-colored, just as the people of Africa were labeled as being gold and bronze-colored. By today's standards, all of the indigenous inhabitants of Oceania, the Americas, and Africas are grouped into a category defined by color called Negroid, while the other 2 classifications are based on geographical location. Thus, the Caucasoid is based in the Caucasus regions, and the Mongoloid is based in the steppe regions. Right? Since the Negroid was found pretty much everywhere they went, it was almost impossible for them to define us by geography. That's one of the reasons why we got misidentified, because we are indigenous or original to the planet Earth. For example, a group of Australians or Andamis living in Central Africa could easily be confused by us or outsiders as being an African. We are phenotypically very similar to each other. That's how we are mislabeled here as African American, when in fact we were created here in the Americas autonomously, but was conquered, re-educated, and forced back into society, then tricked to believe that this is not our original land by creating a group of people called the Native Americans, who were for the most part the descendants of European and Asian fathers and black or indigenous American mothers. This was a tactic used to separate the colonists from the Europeans who were native to Europe, and a term that simply in itself means born in a place. Native means to be born in a place. That's the grammar behind native. So the descendants of the colonists became the Native Americans in about the mid-1800s. By the early 1900s, the name became synonymous with the term American Indian through their black grandmama. Today, these people are mostly, probably about 95% European and Asian descent, and the blacks in America are probably 95% American Indian. The reason why we call ourselves African American is because we misidentified ourselves, allowing our oppressor to be our educator and forsaking grammar. Black Americans are the indigenous American Indian. That brings us to our next question. Where's the proof? If social grammar alone isn't enough to get you going, then let's throw in the scientific proof. First statement I'll make is that even here in South Carolina, there are sites that are older than the earliest possible Mongoloid migration into the Americas. This includes the Taupo site, which is between 20 to 50,000 years old, and also evidence of the indigenous people hunting and chasing a mastodon down to Florida. Next, one of the earliest examples of a human found in the Americas is a woman named Luzia, a Paleo-Indian woman, which was found in a cave in Brazil, which dates back 11,500 years. What is interesting about this find is that this woman is classified as Negro, resembling other oceanic Negroes when she was phenotypically reconstructed. That's one of the earliest forms of a human found by science in the Americas, along with the Aztec boy. So to say that blacks were not here prior to the transatlantic slave trade is a scientifically incorrect statement. I'll say that again. So to say that black people were not here prior to the transatlantic slave trade is a scientifically incorrect statement, and that is proven through Luzia. Next, a little bit further north into Central America and southeastern Mexico arose a culture called the Maya, who left plenty records of their empire. On their patents, they chose to use a brown crayon to color themselves, and a very dark brown one at that. So using today's grammars, the Mayans would be considered black, and if they live here in America, they would be considered African American, Negroes, or niggers. Next, the phenotype of black Americans is slightly different than the phenotype in Africa, especially in the hair. In America, our people's hair grew a little bit more outward into afros, allowing us to wear dreadlocks, cornrows, plaits, and braids. Understand that skin color varies from light to dark in all ethnic groups, so it's possible to find the same skin color phenotype in many places throughout the world. Next, in my opinion, mound building and step pyramids was a progression which eventually led to the building of the Egyptian-style pyramids with the flat sides. The Mayan myth of Queen Mu states that she left the Americas and started a settlement in Africa, which we now call Egypt. Next, I'll take you to a civilization called the OLMEC, which were definitely a Negro civilization as represented by the giant heads that they left, showing off their Negro traits. The Olmecs are a pre-Columbian culture that existed in Mexico some 2,000 years ago. They were highly advanced for their time and left evidence of their existence through these stone statues and sculptures. They also popularized basketball as they were highly skilled in the use of rubber. Afrocentrists would like to say that they come from Africa, but all my research and logic tells me that even if there were an African element, that the majority of the people that comprised the empire were indigenous Americans, making it an indigenous empire with foreign elements, more so in the culture than in the gene pool. That's it for today, family. I'm going to leave y'all with a game. Let's see if you can identify these people, alright? And be honest with yourself. This will show you how closely we are related to each other phenotypically. Remember, we are the indigenous people of America. We are from here. Check us out next week for our next lesson, debunking the transatlantic slave trade and the fake Native Americans. Peace out from the home of the Kichi
Watch
Gullah
where you
people,
walking,
the
nigga.
holy city,
Hey,
Charleston,
what you
South
say,
Carolina.
nigga?
I out ya.
Watch closely. You're about to experience a nigga moment. Webster defines the nigga moment as a moment when ignorance overwhelms the mind of an otherwise logical Negro male,
What did you say, bitch, nigga? Hey, squeeze it, nigga.
causing him to act in an illogical, self-destructive manner, i.e., like a nigga.
You got a problem with that, nigga? 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 You got a problem with that, nigga?
Excuse me, everyone, I have a brief announcement to make. Jesus was black, Ronald Reagan was the devil, and the government is lying about 9/11. Thank you.
You got a problem with that, nigga? 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 You got a problem with that nigger.
You could have killed somebody.
I'd be doing them a favor. Getting run over by me is as close to an honorable death as most of these people gonna get.